Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program, and these are tonight's top stories. Zionist occupation now bombs water lines as Gaza starves to death. The UN warns that 2 million may be caged in Rafah. Meanwhile, activists launch flotillas to break the siege. Also on news tonight, Army Gazette affirms that Algeria regained its global standing and hails the country's unprecedented progress. Meanwhile, Algiers calls for a united migration approach as the UN praises its expect talent strategy. Coming up as well, explosive claims link Morocco's royals to international drug trafficking, while fuel companies make obscene profits as citizens struggle. And later on, Trump declares trading with the United States as a privilege, not free, as the EU demands negotiations over tariffs, while Moscow rushes to avoid new trade penalties. 4 reports up next. Welcome back to the program. Leading on news tonight, an occupation airstrike hit a water distribution site in Nusayrat refugee camp, killing 10 Palestinians, 6 of them children, and wounding 16 others, including 7 children as well. The attack marks a brutal escalation as the occupation shifts its targeting from starving Gaza's population to cutting off water access. More details with Salman Asib.
In a calculated and cold-blooded act, the Zionist occupation continues its assault on humanitarian aid centers. This time, an airstrike by the regime targeted a water distribution point in the Nusayrat refugee camp, in the heart of the besieged Gaza Strip, a clear violation of international law. Moments after the strike, desperate families searched through the rubble for their children, some clinging to hope of finding them alive. With their bare hands, they carried the wounded to nearby hospitals, while others mourned and buried those who had lost their lives.
At 9 a.m., we were overwhelmed by a wave of casualties after a missile hit a water distribution point. Most victims were women and children. We treated 17 people, including 7 minors, with fractures and wounds. We are facing a severe healthcare crisis, made worse by critical shortages due to the blockade on Gaza. Tragically, 8 people died, 6 of them children.
Dozens of people, most of them children, were killed in the Nusayrat massacre. It makes yet another horrific escalation in the occupation's campaign, one that now targets not only the hungry but also the thirsty. This tragedy adds to the growing toll of lives lost in attacks on humanitarian aid sites, with the death count now surpassing 800.
At least 46 Palestinians were killed and dozens wounded as occupation forces bombed shelters, homes and markets across Gaza Strip. In the north, most victims were women and children. In central Gaza, entire families were wiped out, including 10 martyrs from one household near Nusayrat. In the south, drone strikes on tents in Al-Mawasi and airstrikes in Khan Yunis killed over 20 martyrs, or killed over 20 civilians, including a journalist and his family. The massacres reflect a continued assault on Gaza's displaced, from the starving to the thirsty, now even the sheltering. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports Gaza's martyr count has now exceeded 58,000 martyrs. Most of them are women and children as the Zionist genocide enters its 22nd month. In just 24 hours, hospitals received 139 murdered civilians and 425 wounded from ongoing massacres. The UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has sounded the alarm over Zionist occupation plans to forcibly confine Gaza's entire population, 2 million people, in a closed, fenced-off zone amid Rafah's rubble. In a social media post, UNRWA revealed the displacement campaign has escalated with new detention camps being established along the Egyptian border.
What we are witnessing is the peak of forced displacement, aiming to confine up to 2 million people, the entire population, in a closed and fenced-off area where people are trapped amid the rubble of Rafah. This will effectively lead to the creation of detention camps on the border with Egypt. It will also deprive Palestinians of any hope for a better future in their homeland.
On Sunday, Palestinian resistance factions targeted occupation troops, vehicles and supply lines in Khan Yunis. The Quds brigades of the Islamic Jihad movement released footage showing mortar attacks, while Hamas al-Qassam brigades confirmed hitting an occupation command post in Qizan al-Najjar. The Freedom Flotilla Alliance will dispatch the ship Handala from Italy's Syracuse port on Sunday, carrying symbolic aid and a message of solidarity with Gaza. Crew member Maria Lena stated the mission aims to break Israel's illegal siege and spotlight Gaza's escalating humanitarian crisis. Switching focus to another news, the Algerian Ministry of Defense declared Sunday that the nation is progressing steadily toward a prosperous future built on historic achievements. In its July editorial marking 63 years of independence, the Army Gazette emphasized Algeria's resolve to reclaim its prestige among nations, crediting its strongest institutions and dedicated people.
As we commemorate this dear national anniversary, we honor the sacrifices of Algeria's heroes by renewing our loyalty through preserving their legacy, upholding their values of selfness, devotion and national loyalty, and advancing our nation despite all challenges. Today, Algeria is a confident, victorious nation making unprecedented strides in all fields: economic, social, political, diplomatic, and developmental, under the banner of stability and peace. With strong institutions, loyal citizens, and ambitious youth, supported by the highest authority, Algeria has regained its rightful place among nations and moves steadily toward a brighter future.
The Algerian Army Gazette highlighted the nation's promising trajectory, stressing that overcoming challenges and securing success requires the collective efforts of all Algerians.
Driven by creativity and will to succeed, Algerian youth are in step with global technological and scientific transformations, fueling optimism for a bright future. This path requires unity, unwavering determination, and collective effort to overcome challenges and achieve national goals in an increasingly volatile world.
The Algerian Army affirmed its backing for the National Renaissance Project, vowing to remain the guarantor of dignity, border protector, and guardian of stability under a leadership attuned to regional and security challenges.
The People's National Army, strengthened on this symbolic anniversary by new cohorts of skilled patriotic officers, remains fully committed to supporting Algeria's Renaissance project. It stands as the nation's stronghold, defining its sovereignty, safeguarding its borders, and preserving its stability. Just as the National Liberation Army once uprooted colonialism, today's army proves to be the nation's protective shield and decisive sword against any threat, fully aware of its great responsibility under wise leadership, attuned to regional and global security dynamics.
Still with Algeria's related news, Safian Shaib, Secretary of State for the National Community Abroad, emphasized Algeria's key role in shaping migration policy during an Algiers workshop co-hosted with the International Organization for Migration. Shaib reiterated Algeria's call for a comprehensive, coordinated, and solidarity-based approach to migration rooted in international legal frameworks. He stressed the need to protect migrants' rights and uphold human dignity, while highlighting the importance of involving the diaspora in national development.
تعد الجزائر اليوم فاعلا مهما على المستويين الإقليمي والدولي.
Today, Algeria is an important player both regionally and internationally in this field. It is working to coordinate public efforts within a consultative framework aimed at ensuring effective management and sound governance of this phenomenon in all its aspects. Algeria advocates for a comprehensive, integrated, coordinated and solidarity-based approach, grounded in the main international and regional legal frameworks related to migration, the protection of migrants' rights and the preservation of human dignity. With this workshop, we are opening a new chapter in cooperation with this organization.
Similarly, the Secretary of State for the Algerian community abroad praised President Abdelmajid Tebboune's strong commitment to involving the diaspora in national development, highlighted the creation of frameworks and forward-looking policies aimed at organizing and empowering Algerians abroad.
تعد الجزائر اليوم فاعلا مهما على مستويين الإقليمي.
In this regard, I would like to highlight the exceptional attention that President Abdelmajid Tebboune gives to involving national diaspora in the development process. The group is an internal part of Algerian society, as enshrined in the Algerian constitution. This issue is also at the core of the government's work program, and the State Secretariat for Algerian Abroad is working to realize this through a series of initiatives and workshops launched to achieve these targeted goals.
For her part, the IOM head of mission in Algeria, Vera Sami Lalini, commended Algeria's national strategy to mobilize its skilled diaspora through various initiatives. She underscored the vital role Algerians abroad play in political and economic fields, stressing that stronger ties with the diaspora are key to advancing development goals and boosting global partnerships.
De nombreux pays s'efforcent.
Many countries today are striving to implement more exclusive, strategic and sustainable policies to valorize their contribution. I wish to commend Algeria's effort in this regard. This workshop aims to share experiences in migration governance related to engaging communities abroad, to transmit the experience of IOM, and hopefully to develop future collaborations. It also seeks to highlight successful digital practices globally, such as the e-diaspora platform developed by IOM. Moreover, I hope to see Algeria play a more significant role on the global stage, particularly in dialogue frameworks like the Global Political Alliance for Transitional Communities.
Pour la communauté transnationale.
Moving on to Morocco, human rights advocate Mohamed Khandil publicly accused the Moroccan royal family of direct involvement in international drug trafficking, citing testimony from imprisoned kingpins in Europe. In a Facebook post, he affirmed that the royal family in Rabat has become a drug cartel.
In a country ruled with an iron fist and governed by a logic of spoils, it's no longer surprising to see a state itself turning into a drug dealer. The real danger is no longer the smuggling networks operating outside the law, but rather that the head of the power structure, the royal family, is allegedly involved in international drug trafficking networks.
The human rights activist Mohamed Khandil revealed that the Makhzen regime enabled drug traffickers to take over political parties and parliament using corrupt money.
Drug traffickers have been allowed to dominate political parties through corrupt money and then to take over both chambers of parliament. The independence of the judiciary has been dismantled in favor of barons of cannabis and cocaine.
Since 2016, fuel distributors have amassed obscene profits while Moroccans endure relentless price hikes. The Safe Semi-Refinery Front demands sector reform and refinery reopening to halt corporate plundering of national resources. Zara Virginia reports.
Voices are rising in Morocco as the once silent and online protests against the cost of living crisis turn into public statements and demonstrations. The impact of soaring prices has begun to directly affect the daily lives of ordinary people, especially as financial statistics clearly show the outrageous profits made by fuel lobbies, all at the expense of the average citizen, while the country plunges deeper into economic uncertainty.
The Makhzen government is responsible for the systematic squandering of national industrial wealth and its blatant alignment with fuel and real estate lobbies. The liberalization of fuel prices and the removal of subsidies from the compensation fund have caused prices to skyrocket, while major companies continue to inflate their profit margins without real oversight or fair competition in the market.
A symbolic fine imposed by the Competition Council on major fuel distributors allowed these companies to rake in excessive profits exceeding 80 billion dirhams between 2016 and 2024. Their profit margins jumped from $60 per ton to $250. Although the Moroccan refinery has been under judicial liquidation since March 2016, calls to restart it have never ceased, especially since the privatization of the fuel sector led to price hikes that weakened the purchasing power of citizens and triggered record inflation.
Ignoring the Samir file and continuing the unregulated liberalization of fuel prices only serves the interests of fuel lobbies and their excessive profits at the expense of Morocco's economy and its people. The government must show political courage and act immediately to stop the ongoing economic and social bleeding tied to this issue.
The government's ongoing neglect of the Samir case highlights how public institutions have become tools in the hands of a powerful lobby, one that prioritizes wealth and profit over social peace and stability, creating widespread suffering just to enrich a select few.
The International Observatory for Monitoring Western Sahara's Resources slammed Morocco's plans to illegally develop renewable energy projects in the occupied territory, calling it a blatant attempt to legitimize its occupation and entice foreign complicity. Observatory President Erik Hagen, a Norwegian human rights advocate, warned that such exploitation exacerbates regional conflict and violates Sahrawi sovereignty, urging companies and governments to boycott all Moroccan projects lacking local consent. To another global news story, President Donald Trump announced plans to enforce new conditions on countries seeking access to the U.S. market. In a Fox News interview, he said his administration will prioritize direct trade agreements over informal understandings, adding that several deals have already been signed.
Substantially more money, like from 2% to 5%, and they weren't paying the 2%. I solved the NATO problem last week, and we had every country is now paying substantially more money, like from 2% to 5%, and they weren't paying the 2%, but they're paying the 5%, and it's over $1 trillion a year. And we have a big voice in NATO now. We had really not much of a voice. With Biden, you had no voice at all. He didn't know where he was. And it's basically telling countries that we are going to give you the privilege to shop and work in our country. And I think it's very good. And in some cases, we'll make deals. You know, we'll make a direct deal as opposed to a letter. And we've already made some of them with various countries.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen reaffirmed the EU's preference for negotiated trade solutions with the United States on Sunday. She announced the extension of the bloc's suspension of retaliatory tariffs over U.S. steel and aluminum duties while working toward a deal to avoid 30% tariffs. She noted the EU now has broader tools to counter trade coercion, but said the current situation doesn't warrant their use.
The United States have sent us a letter with measures that would come into effect unless there is a negotiated solution. So we will therefore also extend the suspension of our countermeasures till early August. And at the same time, we will continue to prepare further countermeasures so we are fully prepared. Very important in this is always the second and the third element.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz pledged Sunday to work closely with France and the EU Commission to defuse a trade dispute with Washington. Merz warned that the German economy would suffer under the proposed 30% tariffs of the United States and said he's working to prevent them. He warned, or the warning follows Trump's Saturday threat to impose the tariffs on EU and Mexican imports starting August 1st after talks failed to yield a deal.
If it were to happen, then we would be able to put large parts of our economic policy efforts on the back burner because that would overshadow everything and hit the German export industry to the core.
For her part, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced plans to intensify negotiations with Washington to prevent the imposition of 30% U.S. tariffs. Speaking near the northern border, she said her team aims to avoid worst-case scenarios as Trump pushes ahead with global protectionist measures.
Nosotros creemos que por lo que platicaron el día de ayer nuestros compañeros.
My team has started talks with the United States, and I'm confident we'll reach an agreement. We've dealt with similar issues in recent months and expect a positive outcome. Current projections indicate that the US won't impose a 30% tariff on goods complete with the USMCA, though the situation remains uncertain, as a US official warned.
In a related news story, U.S. Customs revenues surpassed $100 billion for the first time, driven by new tariffs. According to the Treasury Department, revenues rose by $27 billion in June, up 13% from May, matching a $27 billion federal trade surplus. Tariff revenues are projected to hit $300 billion by year's end. Let's catch up on more international news stories in the News in Brief.
Sudan's Doctors Union says 11 people, including 3 children, were killed and 31 others injured, mostly women, in an aircraft attack on Shaqanoum in North Kordofan.
The Syrian Civil Defense announced on Sunday that it had brought under control most of the forest fires that have been raging in the western part of the country for the past 10 days. In a post on Facebook, the Civil Defense stated its teams continue comprehensive cooling operations at all the sites where fires had broken out, in addition to monitoring and surveillance operations in case the fires reignite.
Russia's defense ministry announced Sunday that its air defenses destroyed 36 Ukrainian drones over several regions in the early hours of the day. The ministry said 26 drones were downed over Belgorod and 3 each over Lipetsk and Nizhny Novgorod regions.
Algiers becomes the capital of laughter this week as it prepares to host the 7th edition of the Algerie Comedy Festival, starting Thursday, July 17th at the Berlin Bessayah Opera House. Organizers, artists and partners gathered this Sunday for a press conference to unveil the program of this long-awaited event, highly anticipated by the Algerian public.
The 24th Algiers International Tourism Fair took a digital leap, replacing queues with clicks. Dozens of Algerian startups presented smart solutions for booking, travel, and discovery, showcasing a homegrown revolution in tourism. Sofiane Kanturi has more in this report.
Discover Algeria and a millennia-old civilization. That's the slogan front and center at the 24th International Tourism and Travel Fair, which opened Saturday at the Central Pavilion of the Exhibition Palace in Algiers. The event presents itself as a vibrant showcase of Algeria's rich heritage and breathtaking landscapes. A key highlights this year the rise of Algerian startups. These emerging players are on the mission to make tourism more accessible by offering smart digital solutions that simplify travel and booking for both domestic and international visitors.
Fenech Booking est une plateforme de réservation en ligne.
Fenech Booking is an online reservation platform where you can book your tickets, hotel or airport hotel transfers from the comfort of your home. It is the first online booking platform in Algeria. We have been active for a year. French Booking has eliminated currency exchange issue and more. You can purchase the currency from outside and make your payment from home easily.
These young innovators are placing their bets on digitalization as a way to promote the country's tourist treasures. From the vast expanses of the south to the coastlines of the north, the platform aims to streamline the travel experience and, above all, make it more connected.
On propose plus de 14 services, tous axés sur le voyage et le tourisme.
We offer more than 14 services, all focused on travel and tourism, including hotel booking. Additionally, we have API services that facilitate transfers in Portuguese. maritime transport, private jets, and yachts. All these services will be accessible through a mobile platform, making everything much easier.
This wave of initiatives is a direct response to growing demand for modern, personalized, and user-friendly tourism, led by a new generation of passionate entrepreneurs. In this momentum, digital technology is fast becoming the new ally of Algerian tourism.
That wraps up our news program for tonight. Thank you for tuning in and good night.